Hi guys, and welcome back to another Natalie Paterson show. Today, we're going to do something slightly different. I decided that I'd love my huzzy to be.
Huzzy?
Yeah, huzzy, McFuzzy. To be here as, you know, we're both incredibly successful. We're about to buy a fifth property, which will be our first property together. This weekend, we bought a car together. We're about to buy a property together. And so I really wanted Warren to be able to speak into property. So what do you think, someone that's wanting to start out in property, what do you think the best piece of advice would be?
Best piece of advice would be listening to podcasts, researching all the people that are speaking about property, and reading lots of books, getting informed first. I actually do that, but then also the biggest thing that I learned through my property investing journey is actually doing personal development. Investing in yourself before you actually invest in externally. So invest internally rather than externally.
So you're saying that I should probably come to light codes?
Yeah, like learn
there,
personal
you
development,
should.
learn your own psychology.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing. And then start investing externally by buying books. And, you know, the one thing that I love about property is that there's multiple different ways to make money and to invest. And so, you know, for people that are getting into it, you know, it can come into a bit of information overload. But just work out. I've always had the end goal in mind, and then work backwards. So what do you want to achieve? Because depending on what you want to achieve will depend on how you invest in property. So with me, I always wanted to get out of the mine, so I needed to have a property portfolio that was able to grow, but also give me a positive cash flow. Now, positive cash flow, that's a tax benefit, yet the way that I've invested is that I've created multiple sources of income from the one property. So although I've got 4 properties, there's actually 10 sources of income coming from that property portfolio.
You're so smart.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest obstacle to overcome?
Me.
Okay, how so?
Because when I was a lot younger, like I started in the mines at the age of 18, I was on, you know, great money from the very start. I bought my first property in the second year of my apprenticeship. And then, you know, by the age of 24, I had 4 properties, but then they were the wrong type of properties because I was listening to the wrong people. So the biggest bit of advice is find someone who is successful, not who says that they're successful, but can show it to you and has done exactly what you want to achieve. And then just literally copy them. Copy them, find a way to work with them, find how you can get in their inner circle or their outer circle, and then get into their inner circle and then work that way. But study successful people. Read the books. You know, there's so many beautiful books, so many great books. Like the first book that I read was Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that traditional book. Then it was Think and Grow Rich. Then it was Millionaire to the, what was it? The
Secrets of Millionaire Minds. One of my favourite books ever.
Yeah, great book. And then...
How old were you when you started reading these books?
About 18.
That's amazing.
I think it was.
For those of you who are young right now and you're listening to this, fucking oath. Like, I always think about brother, you know, he's 21 and he's surrounded by us all the time. And it is, like you just mentioned before, you know, invest in the people that have already done it. Invest in the people that are already successful. Learn from them, grow from them. You know, dissect and literally embody every single thing, study every single thing that they said, right?
Yeah.
My next question to you would be, if someone has already got a property and they're wanting to actually build a property portfolio, what do you think is the mindset shift they need to have in order for them to acquire more?
Great question. What's their mind shift? Be comfortable with debt, good debt.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Because I see a lot of people, you know, that they don't want to get into debt. But my biggest thing, the best quote that I love is when you change the way that you look at things, the things that you look at change. So by shifting your mindset around debt, by buying a property that's going up in value, that's not debt. That's good debt, or it's an investment. So by changing the way that you look at that one asset, can really shift the way that you then expand into your second, your third, your fourth, and multiple. So, for example, like the one thing that I always look at whenever I look at a property is how can I create more value in this property? How can I earn the most amount of money by this one property?
Can you explain to them what you've done with the one house that has 3? And
Yep.
so you said before you have 4 properties. However, there's 10 sources of income. So explain to them what that means, or like what you've done.
Yeah. So, I can't really disclose too much because it all depends on the council and things like that. But like I have one property, I split it into 2, and then I rent out the shed as well as a separate, because it's a big shed. I was like, oh, well, that can go, someone can use that as a storage shed. So by that one property, I've got 3 sources of income from that.
So clever. And then also talk about the other one that you put the wall in between.
Yeah. So I bought this one property, and I saw it had a lot of value in it, but I was like, okay, how can I, if I renovate this property, I'm only going to get like maximum, because it was only a 2-bedroom house, 2-bedroom miner's cottage in Newcastle. How can I create more value in it? And I was like, okay, if I renovate it and rent it out, I'll probably get about $400 bucks, maybe $420 a week. And then I looked at the floor plan, and I was like, oh, okay, if I actually put a dividing wall up, the floor plan is basically mirror image, and all I need to do is just put a kitchen and another bathroom in. And I was like, okay, cool. So I was like, what are the numbers on that? What's the investment
for putting in a bathroom and a kitchen?
Correct. How much is it going to cost me doing that versus what's the rent that I'm going to get? So it was actually during COVID. The guy actually said it'll cost me $100,000. It actually cost me almost double that. That was a great learning curve. But you know, when I completed that renovation, I had now basically 2 properties that each side is rented at, I think now $350. So I'm getting $700. Actually, it's a little bit more, $360, $370. So I'm getting about $720 for that. And now that property also has the ability to, I've got a shed there as well, so I'll rent the shed out separately as well. So that's another property that's got 3 incomes.
You're so amazing.
Yeah.
And you said before it was a big learning curve when that guy essentially said it was going to be 120 for the renovation. It ended up being double. What was your biggest learning there?
The biggest learning would be standing up for myself and actually saying, no, you quoted me $100,000. I was like, if you had a son that you're helping him build a property and you got a quote that was 100% more than what you actually advertised, what would you do? And he was giving me all the excuses under the sun, and it was actually just being firm with him and standing my ground, because in the past I've always been nice and things like that. So yeah, it was standing my ground and actually going through the process of, look, I'm happy to go down the legal route, but look, and it was also the book Winning Friends and Influence People, How to Win Friends and Influence People. So it's like, how can I communicate in a way that doesn't actually go down that route, but then we can actually sort it out as 2 individual people. So we actually ended up doing that, and it didn't actually cost me double. It cost me probably about 3/4 or less. with what he said.
So, and we'll look into the camera. So, is it possible to buy property with zero money? And if so, if someone was starting at ground zero, what would the step-by-step process be?
There are multiple ways of starting with zero. You can do what's called an option agreement. However, you do have to have and learn have a lot of knowledge to then back yourself up, to then go pitch the idea to other people. So depending on your sales skills, depending on your knowledge and research, yes, you can. However, what I love about property is that when you do it right, all you need to do is pay for one deposit. Because once you pay for that one deposit, then what you do is you either add value to it or you let the market increase in value. Then you refinance and you get the equity out, and then you just use that equity to then purchase the next one. Then rinse and repeat. Use the equity of that property to then buy another one. So really, all you need to do is save for the very first deposit.
Okay, so people that are starting at zero, and you just mentioned that they've just got to buy the first property, and they can use equity and equity and equity and equity. In today's marketplace, if you were to give ballpark figures, potentially, how much do you think people should start saving to buy their first property?
Well, when I first started, I was saving literally every single cent. I made sure that I was, earning the most amount of income and spending the least.
The least.
Yeah. Spending the least. So, the good thing about at the moment, you've got the grants, you've got first home buyers grants, you've got, you can potentially get your parents to go guarantor. There's so many different ways to then get into your very first property. So then that way, you can keep building and building. And then what I've always done is what's called rent vesting. So I've always rented where I've always wanted to live and then purchase investment properties elsewhere.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, thank you for allowing these beautiful humans to witness your knowledge and your love. Guys, he is so deeply devoted and inspired and in love with property. Literally what lights him up the most. And that's also why I was like, he's like, let's buy another property. I was like, you do whatever you would like. I was like, you do whatever you like with our money. You invest it into however you want to do things. He loves property, so that's exciting. Thanks for following our journey. Illy fam.